Good afternoon, class. How's everybody doing today?
Good, thank you.
I'm glad. All right. So, as part of your readings, you all already know you're supposed to read about Freud and Machiavelli, and also Brennan and Stewart. Now, has anybody done that thus far? Yeah. No. Yes. Well, I think I know what assignment we're gonna have to do today. We're gonna work on a project dealing with Freud and Machiavelli and comparing it with Brennan and Stewart. But as you already know, Freud and Machiavelli have rather pessimistic views. So the question I'm going to propose to you all today is, does Brennan or Stewart relate to Machiavelli and Freud? Does anybody have an answer?
You mean like which one of them closely aligns to Machiavelli's and Freud?
Yes, indeed. That's exactly what I mean.
Good question. Give us some time to think about it.
Okay. You all have 30 minutes.
The life of Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was born May 6, 1856 in Preborn, Czechia. His parents were of Jewish descent of the Moravian town of Freiburg in the Austrian Empire. However, Freud decided to take root in Vienna, Austria's capital. There, he married Martha Bernays, and they had 6 children together, and he also pursued his studies at the University of Vienna in medicine, and eventually graduated with his Doctor of Medicine degree. Upon graduation in 1881, Freud began his career at Vienna General Hospital, and eventually became the father of psychoanalysis. Along his journey of research, he came to write a thesis on human nature being inherently aggressive. Freud's premises are drawn from particular historical research through his own perception. He includes the invasion of the Huns, the reign of Genghis Khan and his Mongols, the capture of Jerusalem by the Crusaders, and the horrors of World War I. Through these, Freud surrounded his argument in his writings that human nature is inherently aggressive. And who can blame him for this view, given the fact that he lived through such an experience as World War I? To conclude his writings, Freud states that the law is in place to prevent the crudest of violence, but it fails to prevent the more cautious and refined human aggressiveness, which may lead one to believe that Freud's conclusion is humans will always leave room for their aggressiveness to show, whether it's open or hidden.
Niccolo Machiavelli was an Italian diplomat, politician, historian, philosopher, writer, and poet of the Renaissance period. He is known as the father of modern political philosophy. Machiavelli is most famous for his short book entitled The Prince, which he dedicated to Lorenzo de' Medici, the new ruler of Florence. The Prince is pessimistic towards human nature. Machiavelli believed that human beings are innately untrustworthy. He believes that mankind is selfish, hypocritical, greedy, and will do whatever is in their best interest. Machiavelli argues that it is better to be feared than loved by those you rule, arguing that love is fickle and changeable, while fear is ever-present and consistent. He also argues that the head of state may use dishonesty and other treacherous methods to stay in and increase their power. Since men are willing to dirty their hands in order to overturn their rule, leaders must also get their hands dirty and commit acts of evil from time to time. Readers found his political pragmatism deeply disturbing.
Justice William Brennan, also known as William Brennan, was born on April 25, 1906 in Newark, New Jersey. He became a lawyer in 1956, a short 50 years after he was born, and eventually became a Supreme Court justice. In 1972, Brennan argued that capital punishment violated the Eighth Amendment in relation to cruel and unusual punishment. To make the court understand it better, he provided 4 principles to determine whether a punishment is cruel or unusual. The 4 principles were: number 1, a punishment must not be so severe as to be degrading to the dignity of human beings. Number 2, the state must not arbitrarily inflict a severe punishment. Number 3, a severe punishment must not be unacceptable to contemporary society. And number 4, severe punishment must not be excessive. He believed that execution was inhumane and a prisoner remains part of the human family until you take their life away. Brennan recognized the task of giving humans dignity under the Constitution would be long, taxing, and eternal, but he was willing to put in the work anyway. He was considered revolutionary because he was one of the first to recognize the inhumane flaws of the Constitution and actually tried to fix the problems.
Justice Potter Stewart was born in 1915 in Jackson, Michigan, and educated at Yale University. He was appointed to the United States Supreme Court by President Dwight Eisenhower in 1954. The topic of the article in our readings that he spoke about was Gregg versus Georgia. The purpose of this article is for Stewart to respond to Justice William Brennan's decision in the 1972 case of Furman versus Georgia and to legislation enacted by various states in the wake of the Furman decision. Justice Potter Stewart described the death penalty system at the time as cruel and unusual, in the same way that being struck by lightning is cruel and unusual. In other words, he stated in this article that it was not the death penalty itself that was unconstitutional, but rather the way it was applied made it cruel and unusual. He includes facts from the case itself, the English Bill of Rights of 1689, and the 5th, 8th, and 14th Amendments. In conclusion, a moratorium or temporary ban of the death penalty went into effect in the United States. In response to the decision, 35 states changed their death penalty systems in order to comply with the court's ruling.
All right, this time your 30 minutes are up. What's the conclusion?